Okay, quick video. Something I was thinking of today. The noise, if you hear that gurgling, I'll make a coffee. That's what that noise is. Try to make this quick. Years ago, I read a lot of books about Native Americans before I got into the Mountain Man thing. A lot of the history of our native peoples here. You know, Canada, Mexico, America, this kind of thing. It was a topic I enjoyed as a people. I liked it as a topic, and as far as the time frame, the span, and all this. My dad asked me one day. My dad reads a lot of books. We talked about, something I found in one of these books about the Indians. I think it was the Cherokees or something. And he just kind of said off the cuff. He says, "I don't know why these people are still angry. It's long gone, long since been. I don't see why." And he didn't see why they were still battling. I think most of the Indians were pretty much, whatever was left, were pushed off into the reservations, at least out west here, or the Plains Indians such, by the late 1800s. I think the 1870, 1880, there was some stuff I think happened right up to 1890, but it was pretty much a done deal. It was pretty much wrapped up. But my dad had said he couldn't understand why, it went over the way it did, and why they couldn't just go along and get along. Okay, and he'd said, because he likes watching westerns, because I just can't see why, these other people came, hey, they conquered you, the white man conquered you, but there's all these benefits that come with it too, and just, get over it, let's move forward kind of thing. And I could kind of see his point from his generational point of view, kind of like, okay, whatever happened, happened, but let's move forward. And in that conversation, I was thinking of this conversation today, that we as a people have not had to endure, people today, we have not had to endure what those Indians, I'll call them Indians, what those Indians had to endure, or what the white man or the Europeans had to endure at that time. I'll explain why. I told my dad, I said, well, let's put the shoe on the other foot. I said, let's say that a Muslim nation came upon us with a military and conquered us. Had a big battle, a lot of us died, whatever the case is. But there was a few Americans left. But yet this was now a Muslim area. This was occupied by a Muslim nation. The United States is gone, it's a Muslim thing now. And you happen to be one of the ones that survives. Hypothetically, And your oppressors, these people that have taken the place over now, you have to learn to speak their language. First, they had to put you in a camp somewhere, call it whatever you want. You have to learn their language. You're going to eat their food. You're going to have to take on their lifestyle. You're going to have to adjust. You're going to become a Muslim, maybe not in faith, but in action and behavior and all this. You're now going to have to live like your conqueror. You have to take on the attributes of the lifestyle of your conqueror, or whatever they're going to do with you. And I told him, I said, you imagine that, some Muslim nation came, knocked us out, and now you had to start, eating goat cheese and raising, working for these guys, praying 3-4 times a day to their Allah, or not, not allowed to do whatever prayer you're doing. And let's say that happened in here it is, 2014. I told him, I said, you were one of the ones to survive. Now this Muslim nation has taken us over. You have to adapt to their ways or die. At 2014, by 2024, would you be over it? Would you be okay with it? Would you be, hey, whatever happened, happened. So they killed most of my family and my people, but they've let me take their customs and their ways and move on. I don't think so. And I used to read books according to an era, a time. Let's say from 1870 to 1890 or whatever. I'd read stuff in a certain genre, I think they call it. And we don't think about it, but in 1900, 1910, 1920, where it's industrial or this and that, there's reservations out there. There's reservations, and it's still full of a bunch of pissed off Indians who just 10 or 15, 20 years ago, which is not that long when you get old enough, You're living amongst these people that killed your people, and you are living amongst them now. And vice versa. There was white people that had to live in and around and amongst these reservations whose families had been killed by those Indians in not a distant past. It's 2014 right now. Back in 2000, that's 14 years ago. 14 years after this Indian battle, most people think, well, they're probably over by now. I don't think so. You had a conquered people that had to live amongst their conquerors, and you had people that were part of the conquering group that had to live amongst those that were conquered, that had killed, afflicted, brought death to their front door. And that's something as a people today, us as a people, I don't think we have not had to deal with that. I could, unless I'm missing something, which I usually am. But the Indians of that time had to live amongst the people that conquered them, and so did some of those people who were lost family members to these Indians, which there was that too. They had to live amongst these people as well. We have not had to live amongst anybody that either we've conquered or has conquered us, or that kind of thing. I always thought that was kind of interesting. That my dad kind of understood it after that. He said, yeah, okay, maybe I would not forgive these guys after 20 years for killing my family in front of me or scalping my, whatever the case is. But it was, historically we look at stuff in chunks, and once we're done with this chunk, okay, now we go into this era, we completely forget about the previous chunk. When you're looking at the industrial era, which I think was, and I probably got my dates all wrong, but we're in the next stage. You think of 1900, cars are coming soon, the train's been going on. There's still a bunch of Indians around that got their butts kicked, and they're licking their wounds, and they're a conquered people. They were here, I think right up into I was reading a book about a guy in the 1930s, 30-something, who was out in Arizona, and he was killed, and they were trying to blame it on some pissed off Indians from the reservation killed a white guy. And I'm thinking, Indians? 1930s, they still had a reservation here. We got reservations today, but you still had angry, warlike Indians that had been conquered that were in these reservations, living amongst us. So, I don't know if that's interesting. I was thinking of that today when I was walking the cows out, but just thought I'd share that with you. Anyhow, we haven't had to do that, and thank God.